This week's episode of PokeClass is sponsored by Collector's Cash, your number one place to go for all your single cards and sealed products. Make sure you check them out after the show at www.collectorscash.com. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 98 of PokeClass, where it's unfortunately been a fair while since I uploaded a video. I really do apologise for this, but there are serious circumstances as to why I couldn't or didn't have the time to create or upload videos here. But things are on the up, and I can finally get back to uploading regular PokeClass episodes at least. So today's upload falls right in the centre of City's action, where tournaments are in full swing all over the world. The results are starting to get very interesting now that boundaries crossed have settled into our format, but I will be taking a look at the results of those in a later episode, when cities have finally come to an end. This week will be another deck analysis, and I just want to say a quick thanks to those of you on Facebook for commenting on my status for the subject of this episode, as today is going to be all about a deck that has started cropping up and winning a fair few events over in many locations, Quad Sigilyph. Now this may seem incredibly odd to you at first, but let's get into the analysis so you know all about how this deck works and what to do when you'll find yourself on the opposite side of the table to it. So this deck is designed to take full advantage of the format as it is at the moment, with almost every single top tier deck in the format being powered by huge EX attackers, in a similar way to Quad Sigilyph did at last year's Cities. However, this time Sigilyph is taking centre stage as it's the perfect counter to every single EX attacker. Sounds strong, right? Well, let's take a look at the card a bit closer to find out why. So Sigilyph was brought to us in Dragons Exalted and is a psychic type with 90 HP, an ability and a single attack. So the ability is what this card is all about, and it is called Safeguard, which simply states that Sigilyph is not affected by effects of attacks from EX Pokemon, including damage. So hopefully you can see how strong this is already, as we've just covered that almost every top tier deck such as Darkrai, Blastoise, Ho-Oh and many others all use EX attackers as their main damage outputters, but Sigilyph stops them dead in their tracks. Without being able to do anything against this guy, decks that feature just EX attackers will struggle or just fail to do anything against not only one of these Pokemon, but four. This ability alone makes the deck work so well at the moment, but we must have some kind of damage output to obviously win the game, and this is where we can take a look at the attack. So Sigilyph's attack is called Psychic and costs a single Psychic and double colourless to do 50 damage, which honestly doesn't sound that great. But the small print reads that you do 10 more damage for each energy attached to the defending Pokemon. Okay, so the damage output really isn't that great, but that is balanced out by the fact that you're hopefully blocking out every attack from your opponent's side of the board, or at least most of them. You will be getting around 3 hit KOs on EXs such as Keldeo, but Darkrai's will become more of a problem when they have Eviolite attached, as they will be buffering your damage output by 40 from each attack, thanks to resistance playing a part. However, again we come back to the part where Darkrai won't be at all useful anyway, because Sigilyph blocks its damage output completely. So as you can imagine, games you play with or against this deck could become extremely long and painful, but if locking is a strategy you are a fan of, then this could be the deck for you. Now because Sigilyph's attack isn't the best, you're going to need some kind of alternative strategy to slow your opponent down and stop them from bringing out any other attackers that aren't EXs to wreak havoc on your Sigilyphs. Pokemon such as Zekrom and the ever-growing in popularity Bouffalant can give you some real trouble, so an alternative strategy is needed so that you can cover as many bases as possible. This alternative strategy is brought to you in 2 cards, Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer. Now these cards definitely shouldn't be brand new to you, as they are part of the always popular Hammer Time deck, and they serve exactly the same purpose in this deck, in slowing down your opponent to a halt while you set up and take control of the game. The downside to having these is that you can't reuse them with Sableye because you don't run any, but the heads you can hit on Crushing Hammer and double colourless you can remove with Enhanced Hammer can really lay the hurt on non-EX Pokemon which try to steal a win from you. Obviously this isn't a foolproof strategy due to the flips, but this does add another element of control to the deck, which you are already doing with Sigilyph's ability by controlling what the opponent can attack with. So now you know the overall strategy of the deck, let's take a look at a fairly full skeleton list to get you building this deck to test with or to play against. So we start off with the Pokemon, of which there are only 6 because this is a quad based deck, and those are 4 Sigilyph and 2 Mewtwo EX. The Sigilyph should be obvious by now thanks to the explanation in the video up until now, and are your main attackers against those heavily EX based decks. However, I do feel that you need a couple of alternative attackers so that they can help to deal with those Bouffalant and possibly Zekrom that are set to give your Sigilyph a hard time, thanks to Psychic being a fairly weak attack. At the moment I've put in 2 Mewtwo since that is the most versatile attacker you have available out there which can use double colourless. Do also bear in mind that you're running both Psychic Energy and Energy Switch, meaning that you could also have the opportunity to use Psycho Drive for 120 damage, which could be very strong after you've hit an EX for an average amount of damage with Psychic. Another option you have instead of Mewtwo is actually Cresselia EX. This self-healing attacker can become quite useful in slowing down your opponent even more while you hit for 90, hammer away their energy and then start healing damage they do each turn with Sparkling Particles, Cresselia's ability. You also don't have to worry about an opponent's Mewtwo after attacking, as Cresselia doesn't have weakness after attacking with Psychic Protection, and you can set it up fairly nicely with Energy Switch and double colorless shenanigans. Moving on to your trainer cards, and we start with 4 Juniper, 4 N and 4 Skylar, which isn't something you see always at the moment. However, this deck is all about the lock, which means that you can take the time to miss a draw supporter if you can grab a key trainer for the turn with Skylar to help slow down your opponent even more. This deck certainly isn't about speed, so other draw supporters such as Cheren aren't going to help you very much, and Bianca really doesn't fit into this deck at all, and you'll find out why in a moment. Up next are the obvious 4 Pokemon Catcher, which will help you to choose your prizes when non-EX attackers start hitting the field, and this will also aid in stalling out your opponent a bit more to bring up benched Pokemon that have a difficulty retreating, or to control energy attachments. After this, we have 4 Energy Switch, which will help you to manipulate your energy between damaged Sigilyphs to keep fresh ones coming to the active spot, and will also allow you to set up your alternative attackers much quicker. Then we also move on to your Hammer cards, which you have 4 Crushing Hammer and 2 Enhanced, just to keep your opponent more on edge, as we discussed earlier. After this, we have 3 Eviolite, but I would like to try and fit 4 in, which can be your space filler as you want to make Sigilyph as hard to knock out as possible, even for the likes of Bouffalon, since 2-shotting a Sigilyph isn't exactly great when double EX prizes are involved as well. After this, we then have your Pokemon Search, which is a little thin on the ground, but that is understandable thanks to only running 6 Pokemon. 2 Level Ball are your free search of your fellow Sigilyph to cause some havoc for your opponent, and then we also have 2 Ultra Balls, since you do need a way to search out your 2 alternate attackers, otherwise they won't be that effective. Following on from this, I have 2 Plus Power and 2 Tool Scrapper in here, and these are both ways that you can try to maximise the damage output both Sigilyph and Mewtwo have, since Psychic really isn't that strong when Eviolite is in play on your opponent's side of the field. Even though you will be blocking your opponent out, you still need to take prizes, and Plus Power also helps you out in the Mewtwo war, saving your energy switches for more important things. 2 Skyra Bridge are next, and I've chosen these over Switch as it gives you that little bit more freedom turn after turn when manipulating your energy, and there are other stadiums such as Aspertia City Gym and even Tropical Beach starting to see some play, which you can mess around with too. Finishing up the trainers cards are Super Rod and your choice of Ace Spec card. First, Super Rod is there since you have a low number of Pokemon and would like to keep them on the field as much as possible, and in an ideal situation, you want your opponent to try and knock out 6 Sigilyph to win the game. Onto your Ace Spec choice, and you have 2 you can ideally choose from, Computer Search or Gold Potion. Now many of you are probably thinking, Computer Search is obviously superior, which is true in most decks, but this one works a little bit differently as you run a high amount of Skylar, and the deck is, in general, just really slow. However, Computer Search will always be a great clutch card to grab exactly what you need for the current situation, but Gold Potion is also very viable as you can use it on an Eviolited Sigilyph to force your opponent to get enough resources to get enough for a KO again and slow them down even more. Either of these cards are really viable, so try them both out and see what you think. And finishing up the list are 8 Psychic Energy and 4 Double Colorless, pretty standard looking energy for this kind of deck. So this skeleton has just a single space left because there are so many 4 of cards that I've included, but if you can find the extra space, then cards like Regular Potion, more Plus Power and an extra Eviolite are all options, just small cards to keep your Sigilyph switchable and alive for as long as possible. Overall, this is a very fun deck to pilot, but in a tournament setting, you will need the matchups to go your way to get far, which can happen. Don't get me wrong though, even without the correct matchups, this deck can still be a contender with things like Crushing Hammer bringing the hurt, and decks like Hydreigon and Blastoise can't always hit the resources time after time to keep carrying the maximum of Sigilyphs you have. If you are looking for something fun to test for cities, then definitely give this one a try, and I would definitely test against this just in case you run across it, as it can be very scary to play out for the first time. This deck has been doing well at cities, but will it suffer from not having that surprise factor anymore like Quad Sigilyph did? We'll just have to wait and see for more cities results. So thanks everyone for watching this week's episode of PokeClass, and thanks for sticking with me while I had a bit of downtime. Unfortunately, it wasn't anything I could have seen coming or could have prepared for, but at least PokeClass is back in action, and PTC Geo Games should be coming back regularly along with Ross's podcast very soon. So thanks again for watching everyone, and if you did enjoy, then please hit that like button, comment down below with what you want to see in the next week's PokeClass episode, and if you are new to the channel, click that subscribe button too, I would really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching guys, and have a great week.